Hi, I'm Pam East, and today I'm going to show you how to mask a stamp so that you can use just the part you want. And we're going to make a piece that way, and then later we're going to do Keum on it. This is going to be fun. So I love this stamp with this like feather pattern on it, and one of the ways I test my stamps is with a little bit of silly putty, and I'll go right through a template to see what it's going to look like. So here it is, and that's nice, but what if I got just this little feather pattern and the rest of it was smooth? So let's talk about how we can do that, and that is stamp masking. I'm going to go ahead and pull in this. This is transparency film. I use this for doing photopolymer. I'll print my designs for photopolymer onto this transparency film, but it also makes a good masking material. So I'm just going to cut a piece out. And now I'm going to lay it over the design, and I'm going to trace the part that I want to mask. And I'm going to just start here, and I'm just going around these little feathery points. And I'll just kind of draw that out. So, well, I think I'm actually going to go like that. I wanted one more. So there's my line. Now the part I'm going to be keeping is I want the impression of these, and I want this to be flat. So this is the side I'm going to keep. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Let me get some smaller scissors that'll make it easier. These are really small scissors. I'll get up there and then do it. And then I can get in with the little scissors and I can cut out these little points. All right, so now I've got my mask, which I'm going to lay on here, and it should just line right up, and it does. And now if I put this on here and press the clay into it, or excuse me, silly putty into it, you can see that now I've got my little feather pattern and I've got the smooth area. And later on in this video, I'm going to be showing, I'll be doing clay next, but then after we fire it, we're going to add Keum to that. All right, just like normal, we start with oiling, we're adding a release agent to the stamp, just like you normally would. And I always go big because the clay is going to go farther than you think it will when you start rolling it out. And then I'm going to lay on my mask. Gotta find the spot where that went. That was here. Was it here? Or was it here? It was here. All right, there we go. And then I'm going to oil that as well. And then I am going to, oil where I'm going to, this is a silicone mat. It doesn't stick, but I still find I do better if I just rub a little bit of this oil into it. And then I'll just do this. I don't want beads of oil or swaths of oil. All I need is just a little sheen. All right, and I'm going to pre-roll my clay 6 cards thick. You don't want any cracks or lines across the middle of the clay. It doesn't matter if they're at the edge, but you don't want them across the middle because that'll be a crack in your piece. And I turn it, get it rolled out. There we go. Now when I lay it on here, let me make sure it didn't shift. My roller needs to go perpendicular to this line. I don't want to go this way or this way. If I roll this way, the clay might go up under the mask, and if I roll this way, it might pull away from the mask. So I want my roller perpendicular to the line. So I think about that when I lay this out. And then I'm going to do this with a 3. All right, here we go. When you start rolling, always start in the middle of the clay. Never start behind it and go all the way across because it has to stretch too far. If you start in the middle, you'll get a more even impression. And give it very firm pressure and just up and back. That should be all you need. And this is kind of cool. Your mask becomes something easy to lift your clay with. And then I'm going to peel off the mask. And there is my clay where I've got part of it smooth and part of it textured. And now I'm going to cut out my design. And I like that. I think that's pretty. When you're using a template, always use positive pressure. So you're like pressing the needle tool out towards the edges of the template so that it glides smoothly along the edges. And then I usually slit it to take off the excess. Now I'd like to give that a little bit of a dome. So I have a little doming form here. I have oiled this. It is really important that you oil these or it will stick to these copper forms. I'm going to lay it on there so it's just very lightly domed. I don't want it heavily domed. And that's it. I'm going to dry that and then we're going to come back and add a bail. Okay, we're ready to add a bail to this. It's all dry. And I did sand the edges a little bit so that they would be smooth and ready. You always want to do that before you add your bail. I'm going to start by making sure that everything that needs to be oiled is oiled, or whatever your release agent of choice is. And I always do a little bit here. And then I am using a paper straw. Now, if this was a plastic straw, I would not need to oil it. But because it's a paper straw, I am going to oil it. I don't want it to stick inside my bail. All right, so there we go. And now I am ready to make this bail. And I've got some clay here. It's getting a little tired. I've been working with it for a while, but it'll still work. I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm rolling this, pre-rolling that 6 cards thick. And then I'm going to roll 3 cards on the stamp. I'm going to go right here. I think that's wide enough already. Yeah, it is. So off we go. And there I've got my beautiful texture. And I love this new little, it may not be new to Cool Tools, but it's new to me. I love these little bail templates. I think they're just darling. And I'm going to use one of these because I can line it up really nicely with my design so that it sort of matches the piece. I'm trying to position it. Yeah, I think I like it like that. Ta-da! I'm going to have that straight up and down. All right, let's see how that looks. So there it is. So I'm making a textured bail, which is a little different than what I normally do. But I think it'll look really nice with this piece. One thing I'm going to do right away is I am going to put a little bit of water on this bail, because that's going to increase my working time. I'm going to be able to work with it longer if it's a little bit damp. And I'm going to be using syringe to attach this. So it's going to attach on the back and the front. It's going to be going around. Make sure I get it the right way. Yes, that's correct. And I'll put a little blob of art clay syringe right here and right here. So I'll be able to attach the front and the back at the same time. I'm just putting this syringe in a damp washcloth to keep it from drying out, but you can keep it in some kind of syringe keeper or water or flower tube. And I'm going to lay this on there. Well, here, let me see where the straw goes. This is critical. I'm using this wick away to keep my brush with just the right amount of moisture in it. I love this thing. I'm going to set that on there. Make sure it's centered. And then I'm going to use the brush. Rather than trying to pick it up with my fingers, I might smush it. So I like this Bright No. 4 silver white brush because it's got this nice flat end and it allows me to pick things up and roll them around. And that's exactly what I'm doing to get this bail attached. And that's going to be a very pretty little bail mirroring this feather pattern. And then I'm just going to let that dry. I'll finish my greenware do my greenware finishing, and then it will be ready to fire. So here's our pretty little piece all done. You'll notice I have not brushed it or tumbled it. The Keum, adding the gold to the silver, works best on a freshly fired surface. So that's the way I leave it. Keum works because gold and silver are infinitely soluble into each other. If you apply heat and pressure, the gold molecules and the silver molecules intermix, creating a permanent bond, and that's what we're going to do. Normally, I recommend using Keum weight foil, which is a heavy weight foil. And in my other videos, that's what I did. Other Keum videos, that's what I did. However, sometimes you have the thinner gold at home and you want to use it, and you can. And I want to show you how to use the thinner gold to do Keum. So this is not as heavyweight as the Keum gold. This is an enameling foil. It's very lightweight. It is not to be mistaken for gold leaf. Gold leaf is so thin that if you look at it too hard, it falls apart. I can touch this without it falling apart. So that's important. Try not to handle it with your fingers. Avoid handling it with your fingers as much as possible. You may have to touch it from time to time, but for the most part, you want to handle it through paper because it is very light and it tears easily, and you don't want to get finger oils on it if you can avoid that. All right, so what do I do to get a nice gold when I have a thin foil? What's going to happen is if I do one layer of the thin gold, I will get a light yellow. I won't get the deep gold color that you expect with the thick gold foil. However, if I do 2 layers, I should get a nice good gold. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 2 layers of Keum on this. The first thing I need to do is I need to make myself a pattern because I want to apply the Keum just in the smooth area. And so I need to create a pattern to cut out my foil to do that. This is a nice transparent vellum, and Cool Tools carries this. And I'm going to use this to create my pattern. I'm just going to fold this in half. And now I'm going to put my I'm going to put my piece in here, and I'm going to trace where my gold is going to go. So I can see through it pretty well. You can see that. And that's going to make it much easier to show exactly how I need to cut my foil. And I also need to get this edge. This is hard to do this way. I'm gonna turn it around. So I'm finding that edge, and I'm going to find this edge. And then I also need this V where the bail comes in. It's kind of a tricky design. All right, so there's my pattern. Looks kind of weird, but it's going to look good on the piece. And when I go to cut this out, I said I was going to do 2 layers. I'm going to cut both layers at the same time. So I'm going to see how much I need, which, get that over there. So I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to cut out enough of this to do 2. Yep. It helps if you take the little rubber thing off the scissors. See how I'm doing on this. So I've got 1, and then I got 2, so I need to go a little further. And again, notice I always cut through the paper. I don't try and cut the gold foil directly because I would mangle it. All right, so there's my piece of gold. Set this aside, and then I want to cut that in half. Get these tweezers out of my way. And this corner got a little bent, but if I just rub it a bit with my paper, I can get rid of that bend. All right, there we go. And now I'm going to use tweezers to pick this up and put it into this little envelope that I made with the pattern. I'm going to get the other one and lay it right on top. Come on, get in there. I want it to come all the way up to the edge. You can see right now I'm about a quarter or about a 1/16 of an inch shy. I want to get it all the way up to that top edge. There we go. All right, so I've got my 2 pieces stacked one on top of the other, and they're in my pattern, and now I can cut this out. Let me get rid of all this other stuff that's in my way. Start with the easy bit, which is where the bail goes. Now don't lose these little bits of gold because we'll be using those, so they're still good. And remember that when you're doing Keum, you can always do a patchwork. So if you have a blank spot, you can just lay another little piece over it, and it will blend right in. So you always save your little bits, no matter how small they are. These are these wonderful little beading scissors. They're just marvelous for doing Keum because they're so tiny and sharp. And done. All right, now we get to see how good a job I did. And these 2 pieces are stuck together so well, I'm going to just lay them on together. There, you can see it goes right where I wanted. It's just laying on there perfectly. So now I'm ready to do the Keum, which is applying the heat and the pressure. And I'm going to put this onto, this is an ultralight kiln, and I have a Keum cover on it, and it is preheated. And I'm going to just lay this on there. I'm going to try and do this without disturbing that gold, which is just perfect. And we're going to let it sit for a minute. It has to do what's called tech fusing. It has to get hot enough so that the gold begins to fuse with the silver. And so I give it a minute to just warm up. The whole metal has to warm up before it will stick. And so we're giving it a little time. Usually you can see it starting to relax. I can tell that it's starting to relax onto the piece. And then I'll touch it down, and if it sticks, which it is, then I know it's hot enough. And now I'm going to turn these tweezers over. So instead of trying to use the tips of the tweezers to hold things in place, this is a bent nose. Use that back of that bent nose to hold this down so it doesn't move while you're using the agate burnisher to burnish on the gold. And I'm going to go along that edge because it's a little longer than the edge, so I'm just kind of folding it down the edge. And there's no cut out is ever going to be perfect, so that's normal. And again on this side, and you can turn this thing. Remember that you can turn it, work towards the edge. You don't want your hands out over the heat. Hold it down, and let me try and do this so that you can see it over there. You can see that I've got I'm just folding that excess gold down. And look at that, isn't that beautiful? And it is that deep gold that I wanted. And I just got that by using 2 layers instead of 1. I did it all at once. So you reach a point where you're going to take it off, but you're going to continue burnishing it. So I'm going to take it off the heat now, and I'm bringing it down to a tile, which is heat proof, so I'm not going to damage my surface. And I'm going to continue burnishing it, because this is what's creating that molecular bond, the heat and the pressure. You see, look how golden and gorgeous that is. Eventually, it'll cool to a point where this isn't doing much anymore. All right, so look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So all I need to do now is brush it and tumble it, and then I can apply any patina I want. So I ended up doing a hand finish on this. I used a wire brush, and yes, I did wire brush over the gold. It did not hurt it. I added some black patina to the silver parts, and then I polished it off using radial bristle discs, and then I used an agate burnisher to polish up the gold again. And isn't that gorgeous? Just look at that thing. I'm so happy with this. Hopefully this is a project that you'll want to try. It's a lot of fun.